The atmosphere in the television studio was thick with a silence so profound you could hear the rustle of papers from the bench. A tense, anticipatory hush broken only by the sharp, familiar voice of Judge Judy slicing through the airwave. A question that seemed to hang there, ominous and heavy. "Did you tell the plaintiff that you were going to jail?" She demanded, her gaze locked onto the defendant, a man named Clint Locks. This simple inquiry was the loose thread that, when pulled, would unravel a tangled web of rural connections, impulsive trust, and a mysterious sum of cash that vanished as silently as it appeared. Clint Locks, shifting slightly in his seat, met the judge's eyes and offered a steady, "No, ma'am." But the plaintiff, a determined woman named Barbara Hayes, seated across from him, held a different truth in her heart. A story that began not in a courtroom, but in the dusty, sun-baked world of horse shows and motocross tracks. A world where reputations were built on handshakes and appearances. A world now crumbling under the sterile studio lights. Judge Judy, a pillar of no-nonsense scrutiny, turned her attention to Barbara Hayes. "Is that correct?" she asked, referring to Barbara's claim about the jail threat. Barbara, her voice firm, yet layered with the frustration of someone who felt her good nature had been exploited, responded, "No, no." She clarified it wasn't a threat, but it was the catalyst. The judge, needing to map the landscape of their relationship, asked, "How do you know him?" And so Barbara Hayes began to paint a picture of a community bound by passion and property. Their worlds had collided years prior, she explained, because her granddaughter was deep into the competitive equestrian circuit. "We do horse shows," Barbara said, her voice softening momentarily at the memory of that shared dusty passion. A transaction had first connected them, the sale of a horse to some associates of Clint's, a deal that had hit a snag. They didn't pay all the money they needed to for the horse. Barbara recounted that they had offered 2 high-end motocross bikes as partial payment. Around the same time, another thread in this small world tapestry appeared. Barbara bought hay from Clint Locke's neighbor, who couldn't stop boasting about Clint's son. "He told me that his kid was a champion motocross or whatever, Barbara said, the repetition hinting at the neighbor's proud persistence. Seeing a solution, Barbara Hayes picked up the phone and called Clint Locks. She proposed a deal. Would he, father of a champion, want these 2 bikes for $3,000? Clint agreed. He said he would take the bikes, Barbara stated. Judge Judy, streamlining the history, confirmed. "So, you sold him some bikes, ... okay. When you sold him the 2 bikes for $3,000? Did he pay you?" "Yes," Barbara answered. That transaction was clean, simple, successful. It built a fragile bridge of trust between the horsewoman and the motocross father. They became friendly acquaintances. Barbara and her granddaughter would sometimes visit Clint Locke's impressive property with its private practice track to watch his son, the national champion, ride. They even shared a lunch. It was a cordial, surface-level friendship rooted in mutual respect for each other's worlds, the thundering hooves and the roaring engines. But then, Judge Judy steered the narrative to the heart of the storm. "This case is about what you claim was a loan that you made to him." She pressed for the timeline. Barbara Hayes pinpointed it, September 2015. The circumstances she described next transformed their casual friendship into something fraught with drama and mystery. "He had called me up," Barbara recalled, the memory clearly vivid and unsettling, and said that he had to go to jail and he needed some money. The word jail sent a shock through their ordinary interaction. Initially, the request was for $1,000. And Barbara, perhaps out of pity or the residue of their friendly dealings, agreed to try to help. But then the plot thickened. "However, before I got the money," Barbara continued, her tone indicating the sudden escalation, "he called me back a few hours later and said he needed $5,000. The sum had quintupled in a matter of hours. Asterisk, asterisk, judge. Judy asterisk, asterisk, her eyebrows arching in a blend of skepticism and disbelief, interrogated the very foundation of this request. Had you had that kind of relationship with the defendant, that you felt as if it was appropriate for him to call you for that kind of money? It was the central question, why him and why her? Barbara's justification circled back to asterisk, asterisk, Clint. Locksterisk, asterisk, apparent stability. He owns his own property out there, and he has a nice track. His kid's a national champion. These were the markers of success and responsibility she had seen, the signs that made him, in her mind, a safe bet. It was a decision based on impressions, on the shimmering image of a proud father on his sprawling acreage, not on cold, hard financial history. The pivotal moment came next. So I gave him $5,000, Barbara stated plainly. Judge Judy immediately pounced on the weakest link. Do you have proof of that? The pause was telling. Barbara hesitated, a sound that drew immediate judicial fire. Is not an answer. Do you have proof that you gave him $5,000? Barbara's admission was a defense attorney's nightmare. No, I do not. I can tell you how I gave it to him, but I don't have proof. He did not give me a receipt. In a world of paper trails and digital footprints, this transaction existed in a shadowland of cash and verbal agreement. Judge Judy, digging into the source, asked, "Where'd you get the money from?" Barbara's explanation opened a window into her own unconventional financial practices. She described a slush fund at her ranch, cash kept on hand to pay undocumented workers who helped with the horses as checks were impractical for them. Furthermore, her brother, present in the courtroom for moral support, had given her money to buy a tractor for his own nearby ranch. This was not money from a bank account. It was fluid, tangible cash from the earthy, cash-based economy of ranching. So what you're telling me is that you gave Mr. Locke cash? Judge Judy summarized. Yes, Barbara confirmed. The image was stark, a bundle of bills, $5,000, passing from the horsewoman's hand to the motocross father's with no witness. No note, no record, but a sinking feeling that was now rising as regret. The mystery of why he needed the money deepened. Judge Judy, focusing on the alleged urgency, asked Barbara, "Did he ever tell you what he was going to jail for?" Barbara's response revealed her own willful blindness at the time. "I asked him, and he did not answer me, so I just thought. It was DUI or something like that. I did not know." She had filled the silence with a commonplace assumption, allowing the urgency of the plea to override her curiosity. But Judge Judy was not one to leave shadows unilluminated. She turned the full force of her inquiry onto Clint Locks. "What were you in jail for in 2010, Mr. Locks?" His immediate deflection, "The case was dismissed," was a classic dodge. And Judge Judy would have none of it. She repeated the question, relentless. When he tried to explain about a tenant on his 87-acre property with marijuana plants, Judge Judy cut through the obfuscation with the precision of a scalpel. "Oh, I've been a lawyer for 50 years. I never heard that was a violation of the penal law." "You mean you were arrested for growing marijuana?" She pressed until he conceded. "Possession of marijuana, yes." The dismissive, which was dismissed, that followed from Clint was met with skeptical laughter from the studio audience. A chorus of disbelief that echoed Barbara's own dawning realization. Judge Judy laid it bare. "I just want to know who I'm dealing with." And who she was dealing with was a man who had a history, however resolved in court, that involved the very system he now claimed was calling him back in 2015. The suspense in the room was palpable. Every viewer was left connecting the dots. The past arrest for marijuana, the desperate 2015 phone call about going to jail, the urgent and inflated request for cash, the refusal to specify the charges, and the subsequent Denial of both the loan and the jail story. Barbara Hayes had acted on a feeling, on the polished image of the champion's father, on a friendship she thought was deeper than it was. She had ventured $5,000 of hard, physical, cash-based earnings into a void, armed with nothing but trust. Clint Locks, on the other hand, presented a wall of minimal answers and past dismissals. The case hinged on credibility, on the balance between Barbara's detailed, emotionally charged story of the frantic phone calls and the handoff of cash, and Quint's simple denials. The engagement for the listener lies in the agonizing familiarity of the situation. Who hasn't misjudged a relationship? Who hasn't seen what they wanted to see in someone? The rural setting of horse shows and motocross tracks, of slush funds and acreage, feels authentically American, a backdrop where a man's word was once his bond, but where that bond could now be broken without a trace. The promise of a national champion son and a nice track were the glittering lures, and Barbara Hayes took the bait, only to find the hook buried deep. The story is a slow-motion car crash of good intentions, a masterclass in why emotion and evidence must never be separated, and a suspenseful journey where the only clue is a missing receipt and the only witness is a gut feeling turned to nausea.